Hey guys, welcome back to our training center here at Counterintelligence. Today, I'm just doing a couple of small pieces. One of our franchisees is just coming through training and he's hitting the ground running. He's done some marketing prior to coming to class. He's wanting to have a couple of samples ready to go. These are our samples that we use for in-home sales. They have a drop edge on them. They're only a 1/2 inch thick. They're light. They're easy to carry. They're just big enough to give you some nice display as far as what the marbleization would look like, what the colors would look like. So for this one, we're just going to kind of do a Calacatta ivy type of effect on this one. This will be pretty subtle, but we'll add a little bit of flair to it at the end. I think you guys will like pretty well. So as usual, I'm just going to spread out the white with my hands. It's my favorite way. Really like to feel the epoxy, feel how heavy it is in all these different areas. Now, I will tell you, if you're going to do small pieces like this, small pieces are actually much more difficult to do than larger pieces. Reason being, if you have a large piece, like our normal samples that we do on these videos are 2 foot by 4 foot. Those are the size samples that we do in our training classes. You're doing a 2 foot by 4 foot piece. It's large enough. You got some room to do some different types of marbleization, maybe try a couple of different things on the piece. When you get into these smaller pieces like this is roughly 24 by 18 with a nice drop edge. So it's got a full face on it. You've got 4 edges very close to the center of this board. So your epoxy is drawing in 4 different directions. So you got to be very careful. If you're going to do something with veins on a piece this small, you'll see me on most of our samples, our bigger ones, you'll see me kind of take a diagonal shape just because it gives me a little bit more room on small pieces. But when you get into this, you kind of want to stay more towards the center of the board. So it's going to be a little bit straighter because if I take it angle to angle or corner to corner, it's going to pull both directions and it's really going to distort my artwork a lot because it's such a small piece. So it's just a little pro tip. When you're doing small pieces and you're going to do any type of vein work, you really want to stay more towards the center of your board with your veins and keep them fairly straight. Try to keep them, as close to the center as you can possibly get them into your board. That way, as the epoxy levels and flattens and runs, you're not losing so much of your artwork. So if you want to try to do a true Calacatta ivy is a quartz. And there's a lot of different ways to do white marbles. You can make them crazy elaborate or you can make them very simple and very subtle. The Calacatta ivy is a little bit different than most. I highly recommend not using metallic colors for the Calacatta ivy if you're going to do the veins. I like to use liquid pigments for the veins. And you really want to leave them as much alone as you possibly can. We're obviously going to mess with them a little bit so it doesn't look like we just poured the epoxy in. But you want to try to pour it in a shape that you like and kind of in a direction that you like. Okay, so now, unlike a lot of our different veins and stuff that we do, where we will get kind of crazy with the stick and we do a whole lot of stick work, for a Calacatta ivy, we're just going to take a clean stick and we're going to come around. You don't even necessarily have to do this, but I really don't like, Chris, I'm not sure if you can pick it up on the camera, but it almost creates a haze where the gray or the black or the brown, whatever color you want to do. This is our light gray liquid, but you can do any color that you want to. I just don't like the haze. So all I try to do is take this stick and just barely blend the white and the gray together. I'm not trying to be near as elaborate as I am with our other marbleization techniques. I'm just trying to get rid of that haze and just trying to make it look like it's not just a poured in line. So Calacatta ivy is a man-made product. A lot of people like it. It's just kind of been the in thing for a little while. It's not my favorite, but a lot of customers are going to want it, so you're going to get asked for it quite a bit. So this is definitely a technique that you want to practice. They're very simple. In a lot of the vein shapes, they don't really necessarily look natural because they are a man-made thing. So practice your Calacatta ivy techniques. Make sure that you're showing customer, if they show you a picture of a slab of Calacatta ivy that they really like, take note of the shape of those veins and try to duplicate the shape of those veins in the sample that you do for them and then in the project that you do for them. If you're just making something like for a home show or just to keep in your bag, to keep as a sample, just, you know, pick whatever looks natural to you, whatever looks the best to you. And most of the time your customers are going to like it, because when you believe in something and you like something yourself, it's much easier to sell. People can see it in you. They can feel it in you that you actually believe what you're saying to them. So if you have something that you really just don't like and you take it into someone's home and you try to sell it, they can tell. You'll see your closure rates go up if you really believe in what you're doing and like the pieces that you're taking into people's homes. So for Calacatta ivy, you can leave these just super plain like this. Like, you don't necessarily have to do anything else. If you want to add a little bit of marbleization out in the field, which a lot of Calacatta ivies have, but a lot of them don't. It really just depends on your customer and your colors. If you're going to, with white, you always want to start very subtle. So we're just going to take a little bit of our light gray. We're just going to put these really faint veins in, or not veins, just actually just little spots of color. And then I'm going to be very subtle with this. I don't want this to overtake this piece at all. We're just trying to make it not solid white in the field. Now, if your customer wants it to be solid white in the field, by all means, leave it solid white in the field. If you need a little bit more, just remember, a little goes a long, long way when you're dealing with white. On this half of the board, we're still solid white. On this half of the board, we got these nice soft undertones going. To me, to my eye, I like it with the undertones going on out in the field. I don't like just a pure white, but some people do. So you could actually make a board like this where half of it, you put the marbleization in, the other half you left it clean white. Let the customers kind of decide what they like and what they don't like. For Jason, the guy I'm making this for, I'm just going to go ahead and make this just look as nice as I can based on my eye, and hopefully he likes it. If he don't, he can remake it himself. That's one of the coolest things about epoxy countertops, even on our samples. You do a sample and you don't like it, all you got to do is sand it and go over it again. It's kind of nice. You don't have to make another board. You just sand it, do it again. So one thing I don't talk about a whole lot in these videos is the angle of your stick. So the angle of your stick is going to greatly determine the effect that you're going to get out of this tiny piece right here. If I hold my stick up very vertically, it's just going to keep it really linear and really tight. But if I want to kind of spread that out a little bit, I'll come over to this one. If I flatten my stick out a lot, I can spread that color out much farther, and it becomes softer and more spread out. Versus, so if you're trying to make wider areas, you'll flatten your stick out more. If you're trying to make really controlled, tight looking lines or areas, then you'll hold your stick more vertical. And it really just is a little bit of practice, and you won't even really have to think about it once you've gotten proficient at how to do these and you've practiced enough. It'll just naturally happen. You won't even have to think about it. So to me, that looks like enough of the gray. So we're going to go ahead and add a little extra pizzazz to this one. We're going to add some Ultra Sparkle. And the Ultra Sparkle, it doesn't really have a pigment to it. It's just like a white, clear glitter that we add into the epoxy. It really does make some pretty cool effects. With the Calacatta ivy, I don't really recommend, if they want a true Calacatta ivy, putting it inside the vein. You can put it inside the vein, but it's not generally what I would do with it. I would just kind of come out here, get a little bit, And you really don't want to overwork this in, because the more you work it in, the more it's going to blend in with the white and it's going to kill that glitter effect. So you can do as little or as much of this as you want. I recommend kind of doing it in smaller areas rather than super big ones. Keep in mind, epoxy is a self-leveler. If you come out here and you pour a big area of this in, now it's going to want to level out. So wherever you pour it, it's going to level out, because this is in epoxy. It's going to push your artwork away. When I come in and I add these small little areas, it's going to move such a subtle amount you probably won't even pick it up. But you notice I'm a little more vertical with my stick because I don't really want to bury this glitter effect. I want it to kind of stay right where I want it, stay kind of defined, and just add some flair to this piece. Like I said, there is no exact right or wrong amount to put in. Like, to me, that's enough for a spot for a board of this size. I think that's plenty. If your customer wanted some of this in the vein, you could certainly put it in there. But for Calacatta ivy, the veins are usually just very plain, very subtle. I guess we could do one just for educational purposes. So I'm going to be pretty sparing with it going inside of this vein. Just going to come in a little bit there. Up here. Kind of got to balance it out a little bit, make it look like it belongs there. Actually does look pretty good, doesn't it? With Calacatta ivy, typically I do not hit these with isopropyl alcohol because it will change the way these veins look on the edges. And to keep it looking like a Calacatta ivy, you don't really want that circle celled look around the edges of these. So now it would just be, if you have any trapped air bubbles, which right here we're looking pretty daggone clean, hit it real quickly with a torch and you're good to go. So that's going to wrap this one up, and we'll see you on the next one.